What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of? That my abusive stepfather went to jail, not exile, for 8 years when I was a teen, and that for a few years prior we were actually running from the law, not hiding from the government because of his activism. This suddenly dawned on me about a month ago, more than a decade later. Kinda like how it suddenly clicks that the dog didn't go to a farm. That my grandmother had a child before she married my grandfather. When my grandparents met and started dating, my grandma was only 13. My grandpa was 20. They married when she was 17 and he was 24, right after he came back from serving in World War II. This was about as much of the story as anyone in my family ever knew. They'd been dating, then he went overseas, and she wrote to him while he was gone. When he got back, they got married. A few years after my grandma died, my grandfather suddenly mentioned that they'd actually been broken up for a while before she started writing to him. After they'd dated about a year, he went to pick her up at her house one day, only to find she wasn't home. Her parents informed him that she'd left to live with some cousins a few hours away and that she'd be gone for about a year. He got upset that she hadn't told him about this in advance and ended the relationship. When another yearish had passed and she returned home to her parents, she started writing him overseas and apologized, and they started dating again. My grandpa told this story very blandly and seems to believe that the situation was what it said on the tin. But of course, in the 1940s through 60s, it was quite common for teenage girls to go live with relatives for a year as code for having an out-of-wedlock pregnancy. My grandpa would never admit if they'd been having sex, but I'm betting they were. She got pregnant and she was sent off somewhere to have the baby. I've done commercial DNA testing, so I'm on the lookout for someone to turn up as a sibling match to my mom someday. The only other explanation for my grandma suddenly leaving town would be if her parents didn't approve of her relationship with my grandpa, but from everything I know of them, they were perfectly fine with their 13-year-old daughter dating a guy in his 20s. There's one company in a town local to me who board up windows. Nobody else in the area seems to do it. Every single window, door, abandoned shop, all done by this one company. They've got a ridiculous-sized headquarters and have put a decent amount of money towards fixing up other buildings in the area. So I've got a theory that they're the ones doing the damage or paying people to do it, and then obviously getting the job of fixing it up as they're really well known in the area. Despite having no proof of this, I am 100% confident and I am on to them. That my older brother is actually my biological father. It makes no sense to me otherwise. I have a butt chin and no one else in my family does. This older brother is an alcoholic, drug addict, and just a big mess all around. He brought different women into my parents' house every day and we would hear them frick. It makes no sense to me that he came out of that with 0 children. Makes less sense since he's about 20 years older than me, which means my parents would have had me at a dangerously, for my mom, old age. I know it's not impossible, but it just makes a lot more sense this way. Plus, my parents always covered up for his wrongdoing, so it honestly wouldn't surprise me. I once asked my mom and she got visibly upset. I didn't even ask her outright. I just said I had a dream that they told me my brother was really my father. She got super mad and refused to even discuss or acknowledge my dream. Weird as hell. I would still consider my mom, wouldn't consider my brother my dad if he were, because he's an ass. It's just something I think is highly probable. That the purpose of life in the universe is purely to create a new universe. To me, this is the only way for any life to ensure its survival forever. I'm not talking about just human life. I think the chances of us surviving are super slim. Consider this. We can safely assume that every problem life will ever encounter will have a solution. Given a species has enough resources to exploit any resources it wants, luck is on their side and they don't hit any Fermi walls, then the only limiting factor to life solving a problem is time. In the universe, time is not infinite. There will be a time where the very atoms in the universe start to decay. This is life's final deadline. If life in its varying forms cannot find a way to escape the universe before this happens, life in the universe will die forever. And how does one escape a universe while being inside a dying universe? You must perform the genesis of a new one, or perhaps several new ones. This is the ultimate problem to solve because the universe makes it so. So, if the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, life is the powerhouse of the universe. That some Canadian guy who owns an antique shop that I bought a camera from in April recognized me. He acted flustered when I came in, and I came back the next day to make my purchase. He sold me the camera for what I thought was a reasonable price and threw in an owner's manual in near perfect condition. A quick Google search reveals that it's an extremely rare camera that was only produced for 2 years. 1 out of 1,000 still in existence are operational, and 1 out of every 1,000 working ones still has a certain part. Mine does. This guy's whole shop was based around antique cameras, and my dad talked shop with him for a while, and he even explained to me how to find film or modify some for my camera. He knew what he was selling me and lost a lot of money in the transaction. I even got it appraised to confirm my suspicions about what it was. I think my local newspaper and news stations make up fake Facebook profiles to post inflammatory statements in the comment sections of their news releases. There are frequent commenters whose profiles have a basic name, no friends/random international friends, basic profile information, and only one profile picture who will make some outlandish comment that starts a war. That a relative is a CIA agent. She was in the Peace Corps, Vietnam era. Ever since, she's been a world traveler, somehow able to drop her work and go hiking in the Spanish version of the Appalachian Trail, or otherwise go to exotic locales. Sometimes she comes back with injuries. I fell as we were climbing some rocks. Her son is in the agency as an employee, not a spy, and he's married to a CIA translator. I suspect that my cat understands much of what I say to him. He listens attentively with his ears cocked in my direction, making intense eye contact with his deep, green, intelligent-looking eyes. The way he responds with a specific litany of meows confirms my theory that he gets the gist of what I'm saying. Oil company lobbyists are behind the whole paper straws thing. The waste from the straws is so inconsequential, but yet, almost overnight, half the restaurants in the world switch to these horrible paper straws that leave a weird residue in your mouth and disintegrate before you're done with your drink. I feel like it was someone's sinister idea to make the general public resent environmentalists, and it's working. Because those damn paper straws always seem to strike up a conversation about how global warming didn't wind up being as big of a deal as Al Gore said it would be. That Alzheimer's disease is caused by a long series of small brain infections that are brought about by a leaky blood-brain barrier. That the plaques that form in the brain are a result of these relatively minor infections. Something then crosses, which would normally be blocked out, caused a malformed tau protein, and the tangles start forming, which causes the neurological degradation. It would explain why people have plaques but no symptoms, why it predominantly affects older people, why busting the plaques have seemingly no effect on the progression of the disease in humans, and why 30 years and billions of dollars of research have essentially gotten us nowhere. But I'm not a medical researcher, so I can't really speak to the veracity of my claims. That every single person who has submitted their DNA to their ancestor sites has officially damned themselves. That's like giving away all the passwords to your devices. Our DNAs are coding. It's what builds us. If someone, for some reason, wanted that information for any reason that would likely ignore the integrity of bioethics, they could get to it. Rich person will die within 2 days without a kidney transplant? They could easily pay someone to check the database and find an individual who could potentially be the closest match. That person would also have submitted where they live. It would be pretty convenient for that person to randomly get terribly injured and taken to the hospital where the rich person happens to be at. I know it sounds crazy, and there are 100 less crazy things people can do with our data, but with body autonomy rights starting to be taken away by some states, it's essentially the government saying they own the rights to your body. It's just not that obvious, for now. Y'all wait. Y'all mark my words.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and comment down below your thoughts. Subscribe if you want to see more videos from us. We have more videos on screen for you to watch right now.